that for the most part they should know what's coming at them, and they did talk about the hero pool. So let's get the draft going for game number 1, starting with the Battleground pool. No Tomorrow has chosen Infernal Shrines. We've got bans on both Cursed Hollow and Tomb of the Spider Queen. No Tomorrow banning Tomb away from Roll20, an excellent ban, and then Cursed Hollow ban from Roll20. Again, that is the standard, what we know from Roll20, only deviating to ban Shrines away from Team Freedom last weekend.
Yeah, and now the fact that No Tomorrow is comfortable being the selector of Infernal Shrines is kind of interesting, mainly because that was the one, the one game that they actually struggled directly against Even a Death. I guess they struggled more than that, but I didn't feel that they gained a lot of control. Their performance specifically on that map felt a bit underwhelming from my perspective. And so I just didn't expect them to be like, you know what, Roll20, and Roll20 used to be known as this was their go-to. Obviously, that's slightly changed recently. So it's just a lot of confidence coming out from them, even though they had some stumble last week.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me remembering that Infernal Shrines game versus Even in Death was the moment where there were some stagger deaths and then Equinox as Sonya got caught on top of the shrine.
Yeah.
Granted, when you look at things like KDAs for No Tomorrow, they do die more than you see a lot of the other players potentially from the top teams of North America. However, they're also making a lot of plays. And to pair with that, their decision-making and the fluidity of their rotations, they actually remind me a lot of what we thought of for a long time as the Korean teams, having a lot of aggression, being able to make plays. And yes, they might die a little bit more, like if you were to look at Reset's Lee-Ming as opposed to like Schwimpy's Lee-Ming, but they still get the plays in and they have the great decisions to go behind that.
Yeah, essentially, it's kind of the idea that though, yes, they are dying, they're trading so positively for their team that it doesn't matter, that their death is more valuable than a majority of the others that we witness. And so that is something we got to be looking towards. But so far for the draft, Roll20 and No Tomorrow here on Shrines. We've got the Genji removed. Hubbard is going to be the also popular Tassadar ban.
I think both of these teams would be more than willing to first pick a Tassadar, so I'd be very surprised if he ever made it through drafts, but especially on a battleground like Infernal Shrines, where he offers a lot with shrine control and he's such a good enabler of heroes that both of these teams would like to play. Uther will be the first pick for Roll20, getting that support. And a quick Zool Stitches.
Oh, man.
I knew he'd be coming in.
Yeah.
I had been told that. Didn't think he would be draft number 1 of the new weekend.
And that priority, so
yeah.
very high, too. I did expect to see some Zool as well. On some of the maps that we've known in the past, him to show up. Infernal Shrines, for instance, the reason why he popped up in the past was because those first shrines are, not that effective at getting pushed, but Zool side-soaking 2 lanes is really a great experience tool you can abuse. But the fact that it's risen so high, that makes me go how many games are we going? Is every game going to have a Zool? Because it's very possible now.
And what is weird is that he was notoriously absent from the European region.
Yeah.
And whereas we and Europe started off of the mid-season brawl with a very similar meta, now in 5 weeks have deviated quite a bit from each other, which is going to make the Western Clash super interesting and a lot of fun to see how those metas clash. Greymane and Dahaka picked up for Roll20, though, 2 picks that we know them for, that should be expected from No Tomorrow, but also that will be good for this battleground.
Yeah, it'll help. Roll20 will have the Dahaka for that soak onto the side. It'll be able to stop the bleeding of Zool and the pressure that he can keep up, again, into the first and second Shrine phase is really where Zool kind of can stand out from the rest. But he should struggle, especially early on. In the later stages of the game, though, Dahaka will be able to make up for that. Specifically, we're looking post-13 traditionally. Then we got the Arthas and Ariel taken off the table. Last time we saw No Tomorrow play on this map, they were, comfortable with moving into Stitches and the Ariel itself. No surprise, it's just been everywhere, really, in North America.
Yeah, it has. It's been a favorite of a lot of teams, and rather than trying to deal with, okay, which battery do we take away here? Do we need to worry about something like a Gul'dan? Do we just take away Vala here? Just ban out the Ariel outright and get rid of that hyper carry style and the huge enabler of that in Ariel. 2 more picks for No Tomorrow. What do they want to add to the Zool? We're looking at Stitches too, so we're going to need some follow-up lockdown of the hooks.
Yeah, it's interesting. Zool in the past has had 5 different kind of composition styles that he would work. Some just heavily focused on the macro, others abusing his Bone Prison is a very consistent 2-second lockdown onto an individual target, and that being point and click. Old school kill comps used to be a thing. Zool and Lee-Ming used to be the duo, but it wasn't a must-have. So I feel like this is a very creative moment for No Tomorrow into this draft. They decide they're going to fall onto the Falstad and the Malthael. Nice synergy picking those both up in the same rotation. You know, always afraid of Malthael, even though he can get the unstoppable at level 13, you still would isolate yourself if you ended up getting that Gust. And so it's a really nice, you know, avoiding that kind of counterplay for Roll20.
Medivh and Sonya choices for Roll20.
Wow.
Interesting to see that, but we have occasionally seen the Medivh-Sonya pairing together, and in the late game, Sonya is not going to be able to be killed. That's just basically it. So you're going to have to hope that you're able to get kills on someone else. It's not going to be the case there. But that does mean that it's a Dahaka primary warrior for Roll20, which is also interesting. So where do we see Justin go?
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be the Dahaka, but I'm not totally confident on that. Maybe Roll20 mixing things up here. No Tomorrow is going to lock in the rest of their draft. That's Tiger there onto the Rhaegar. No surprise to see the Rhaegar picked up. He has only risen in power recently, and the fact that we're on Infernal Shrines, being able to move into the Lightning Bond, and just even without that talent, really, you're just one of the best wave clearing supports in the game.
So once again, we're seeing a team prioritize Falstad back in North America. No Tomorrow does seem to be one of the biggest focusers of him, especially if they're not able to get to Haka. Those are Jason's top 2 heroes that he plays. It's very evident that they want Jason to either be the Vala or the Lunara in a hyper carry type of composition, or they want him to be the global that split soaks away from the team and then comes in when he's needed for battle. But we get to see Zul. I am very interested to see how Roll20's draft, though, is going to work.
I feel like both sides actually are pretty interesting, just because it's been a long time since we've seen Zul, and maybe there's going to be, you know, some new creative iteration of him. And then also the composition just in general is pretty creative, and the fact that Stitches is the only main warrior, and yes, there are the double melees, and typically they have a little bit higher health pools, but it's not the double, you know, off tank or the bruiser. Zul kind of fits that role, but not nearly as well, since his level 1s have kind of been nerfed over the long run. And then still the same kind of problem on the other side, where Dahaka is the main warrior, but you know he's never the main warrior. I think both have obviously shown that this patch has impact on the North American meta, and so much so that I don't even really feel comfortable of saying, like, well, you know, this one versus that one. I feel like No Tomorrow's a little bit more forgiving than the other side, just because Zul, the wave clear, having the Falstad global, they've got a lot of safe tools, but by no means does it feel lopsided into their direction.
Yeah, the thing I'm most worried about is if we get that late game Sonya, I don't know that No Tomorrow has the tools to be able to deal with her. She can get out of roots with her Hurricane. She's going to have not only her good sustainability in late game, which is basically she can take care of herself, then you add a Medivh shield to it. I don't know. We're going to have to see how much No Tomorrow can get done with their composition early on. Let's get into the game. Game number 1 between No Tomorrow and Roll20.
And here we are. In the blue is No Tomorrow, man, where Tiger JK, in fact, is going to be on the Rhaegar. Casanova playing the Stitches. We have Equinox representing on the Zul. Talking Trees will be the Malthael, and I believe that we forgot Jason there on Falstad.
Talking Trees playing Malthael. That is interesting, but of course lots of melees. Over for Roll20, Glaurung, of course, playing his Medivh. Justin will be on the Sonya, which puts Goku still on his Dahaka. Prismaticism playing Greymane, and then Buds playing Uther. Gonna have to watch and see how Dahaka's build, if it's changed at all, as well as Sonya's, with the change up of both Justin and Goku there. But then we'll also keep track of Zul's build. So far, he's taken Backlash, which did seem to be the norm. It is that big chunk of damage if you're able to be around enemy heroes. Once his bone armor concludes, 15% of their max health. As well as Malthael. Malthael did have a few changes here and there, so we'll see how that impacts him.
Starting out with the wave clear at level 1. Nice drag coming out from Goku. Casanova trying to get the retreat. Portal down. Glaurung goes in. He makes it out, and no kill onto Casanova. Justin, you can see they were questioning if they had the opportunity, but so far it's just all about No Tomorrow and abusing the Zul in wave clear. That is what Zul is just known for. That is really the primary reason we typically see him picked up. Obviously, he can contribute more than that, but it's the control he presents to the early stages of the map and just draining of ammo. You can get so much experience so very quickly from this hero, but so far, Roll20's done a good job.
You know what is interesting to me?
What is it?
That Diablo was up, and Roll20 didn't want to get their Diablo Medivh.
I mean, There's a couple things that look a little awkward here for me when looking at Roll20's decision making throughout the draft, but I just assume that this is what they've managed to learn out of the stumbling of last week, right? Both of these teams, oh, Equinox here, getting caught out a bit, shield going down onto Justing, but no kill available. Trees, though, caught out too far. Nice drag from Goku. They're going to get another kill. That is 2 kills now for Roll20, starting it off right.
Showing why it is that Roll20 are so feared on Infernal Shrines generally, why so many teams will ban it against them. And that puts them in a great position to start off this shrine, the very first shrine of the game. And we know that Equinox is on Zul. He would ideally like to be moving between lanes as much as he can. But I love that Roll20 are keeping the aggression going from the start. Instead of immediately trying to go to the shrine and get some of the skeletal defenders there, they know they have so much shrine clear in their heroes that they can try to push along or onto this lane as much as they can. But have they gone too far? Glaurung's in trouble. Prismaticism is fairly low on health too. They were trying to maximize their benefit of giving those 2 kills.
And they were able to get enough. You know, they got to be walking away at least quite satisfied. But now they got to focus here towards these skeletal defenders. There's already been 13 picked up for No Tomorrow. Actually, Roll20 is going to completely forfeit these.
They do that before, but I would have thought that they wouldn't do that with so many shrine clearing heroes. Even getting Shattered Ground at the level 4-2 to have the increased splash damage over getting Hurricane to make sure that she can Whirlwind out of roots.
Yeah, it's not totally uncommon to have that strategy to be able to give it up. And with the Zul on the other side of the table, I can understand the concern because, again, Zul traditionally, if you match all 5 members to the shrine, he is going to be a problem with those other 2 lanes. So definitely paying attention to them, totally understandable. But that was complete neglect over the shrine. So we'll see if it pays off later. You know, the Punishers early on are not the strongest guys, though they look tough and they're get up in your face and punch a couple of things. You need a couple of heroes if you're going to get a kill.
They have 3 heroes here, but keeping Falstad and Zul continually split soaking. Looking at what we have for Zul, he has Grim Scythe, which is a cooldown reduction for how many people he can hit with Cursed Strikes. I am wondering what we will see at 7. I've heard talk about Weaken and how strong of a talent that is because it increases his attack speed slow to 75%. Which would be nice, especially versus that Sonya. Or if we'll see something else, though. I did hear that it's especially nice versus somebody like an Illidan. We'll see if that carries through to Sonya as well.
Yeah, the auto attack debuff, 75% is just absolutely ridiculous to be able to get that. Granted, you know, there are a bit of trade-offs in terms of the positioning on Zul to be able to get value out of those talents. And conveniently, so is the synergy there with that backlash at 1. But it looks like we found ourselves a smidge of a skirmish down here on bottom. The hook away from the portal. Glaurung getting a little confident there. He does manage to make it out, though. Justing keeping up that pressure there with that Sonya spin. And now the drag gets another kill here. My goodness, Goku prepping Roll20 left and right for these early game kills.
Yeah, Goku may not be your standard warrior, and in fact, he is still the side-soaking hero, but we know how well he can hit his drags every single time. You did even see the cleanse come out, it just wasn't in a position to be able to get that person back in time. So still, Roll20 being able to control all of the kills in this game.
Yeah, that's just so ridiculous. And again, he's being a bully up to Jason. This is not the first time that we've had Jason have to second-guess himself. Goku trying to be able to abuse that level 1 conveniently. Get him right back in that turret range, and things are going to be fine. Roll20 here, even though they did neglect that first shrine, because of the control and the kills they've managed to pick up, they found themselves still a full level pre-10. This is so impressive from Roll20.
It is, and it sets them up in a great place if they want to contest the next shrine. They are also holding off on being able to cap their Shaman, although it ends up being that the shrine will be in the top lane, so they'll cap that anyway, but it still will help a lot, especially getting a kill on Zul again. Roll20 with 4 kills to 0, and they'll have this lane push thanks to the Shaman.
Yeah, and I'm just a little scared here for No Tomorrow. It's not by any means that oh, wait a minute here. They're making a play on bottom. Glaurung still got the portal, but the Force of Will being used. Prismat does manage to be able to make it out. Looks like Glaurung will as well, but just comparing the play when Even in Death versus No Tomorrow, and when Even in Death obviously able to get the wins there, but No Tomorrow did seem to have signs of struggling. Again, being on the same page here, these 4 kills into the early stages, it just now 5 because again, Goku just being so very impressive, it makes me very afraid because that it just stepped back from the decision making for No Tomorrow. They've got to take a breather, got to reclaim the, get their composure back. and I feel like they still got a chance here, but that window's closing for game 1.
Dread, that was perfection from Goku. The way he stalked in, the patience, made sure to hit the drag, and then afterward had the body block so that there was no way that Stitches was going to be able to get away. They have abused No Tomorrow so much in this early game.
I feel like Goku's putting up an argument as to maybe Dahaka should be a primary warrior, you know? What if you just have to play it that very well that you can make it viable? You know, and that's not the first time we've ever seen that. I mean, for people, at first glance, you go, well, that's never going to be a thing. But think about people who have innovated in other heroes, in other roles, and changed the entire paradigm of how they should be played. I think of like Hankono's Muradin build as an example. Any version of Noblesse's, one of the 20 that we've managed to see happen. But Goku, again, another drag.
Oh my gosh! Jason now has to get the Ancestral Healing. We've got the Poison Nova down 2 and the Leyline Seal to buy time for Roll20 to get back away from that. Talking Trees also used his Tormented Souls, so those are 2, plus the Putrid Bile and Ancestral Healing are a bunch of heroic abilities that Roll20 can feel confident in going back in, and now they've been able to force the Gust as well. 35, 36, and 37, No Tomorrow will claim the final couple of Skeletal Defenders to get their first Punisher, but it was a close one.
It very much was. A lot of trades when it came to the heroics, but I would say overall that, though No Tomorrow walked away with the Punisher itself, when you're looking at other team fights away from the Shrines, Roll20 still has a really solid opportunity because of their cooldowns. They didn't use all the heroics, number 1, and even then, some of them so very short. Curse Bullet coming back online. We still see Wrath of the Berserker available. And so I'm optimistic here for the team fighting phase of Roll20, even though you know, it was just a pretty much even trade of heroics there for the second Shrine.
Both of the Globals are trying to make sure that they can get the push, but Goku is going to be able to push down that 4th that is fairly low in the bottom lane if No Tomorrow doesn't respond in kind. Also dealing with the mercenary camps in the mid. No Tomorrow has chosen to keep Zool with the team instead of trying to have him rotate back and forth between the lanes. Now he's been caught by Goku. Gonna try to helping hand him back to safety. Goku's there, so is Justin. Casanova bearing a lot of the brunt of the damage to make sure that he can keep Equinox safe.
Yeah, and we haven't even gotten to the 13 power spike. Roll20, you know, with the Medivh, suddenly the synergy between the two, it's essentially 100% uptime on those portals. And I expect just more and more plays from them. There's going to be a portal to save Prismat. Nice hook from Casanova to bring him over the wall. But Jason going out a bit too far. No barrel, and he's down.
He is dead.
He's dead? What was that?
It's a Flight of the Conchords reference. Anyway, No Tomorrow are having a rough time with this. There is another kill, so Malthael's down. Roll20 are everywhere. They kill Zool too. I don't think No Tomorrow was expecting Roll20 to be this good. Angry, hungry, thirsty, whatever you want to say, just in the very first game. But I feel like that's what you get when you pick Infernal Shrines versus them.
Part of the reason I was like, you know, it's surprising to see this kind of confidence from No Tomorrow when looking at the maps. Though Roll20 has shifted their favor, that doesn't mean you forget all the things you were so very good at on a different map. And so Roll20 has really just been flexing throughout this entire game. Now a total 2-level lead here over No Tomorrow. No Tomorrow's got to be able to figure it out. And you talked about Equinox being with the rest of the team of No Tomorrow. It is surprising that they didn't seem to have any interest in finding a way to abuse the wave clear that he has.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Where he has been with the team, as well as the build that he's been going into, he is more focused on being a team fighting Zool, trying to slow the attack speed of opponents. He has taken that. It's very likely that we'll see him go for the Rapid Harvest, so the increase of attack speed, along with the other Cursed Strikes talents that he's already gotten. But it is interesting and different to see this kind of Zool, and so far, No Tomorrow has been struggling with it.
Yeah, it's been very difficult to be able to get the team fight that they desire. But now we've got another Shrine, Roll20 with the 17 Skeletal Defenders already kind of putting the ball in No Tomorrow's court. What do they want to make happen? Dahaka yet to transition anywhere. The Shaman Camp pushing up on top, but it looks like they have found it. Goku comes in. The drag lands onto Tiger JK. He pulls him in there. Nice Bone Prism's going to get the peel onto Justin, but there is the Leyline Seal, Gilly.
Poison Nova, as well as Tormented Souls, was doing a lot. Equinox barely stays alive. A perfect Mighty Gust, as well as the Ancestral Healing, keeps Jason alive, but they can't kill anybody. Now you've got a Divine Shield on top of Justin. He'll get the root. He gets hooked as well, but Casanova not catching the fish he wants, backs off. Jason again in trouble as Buds and Goku chase him down, and Roll20 keep No Tomorrow off the Shrine long enough to claim the Mortar Punisher.
Just every time anybody on No Tomorrow, any of the squishies feel like they were going to try and do something, specifically looking at Falstad, and Rhaegar. Goku is just like, well, I'm going to make sure that it's either you're questioning every decision that you make because he is just hitting every single drag. Even here, catching out through the mid lane, just pressure at all fronts, it feels like here for Roll20 as Goku is going to go back to his home up in the top lane and just be like, we're getting experience everywhere.
And you know, Goku will walk in to a group of like 3 opponent heroes and a whole bunch of minions, and yet somehow grab the most vulnerable target and be like, come along with me, my friend, we're going to go take a ride. I don't know how he does it.
He just like extends his hand and be like, come with me, my friend.
If you want to die.
Goku, man, has just been so very impressive for Roll20. Still here up in the top. Falset's flying in, so this is going to be a 2v1. Will he survive? I've seen Goku get out of weirder things. Yep, he is going to burrow right away, and the brush stock is going to allow him to survive. Roll20 hasn't let go of their lead at all, though. Now, there's almost 3 levels. That's just insane. No Tomorrow has got to find a way to come back here.
Dread, we were looking at, or we've talked a lot about double poisons, right?
Yeah.
Tormented Souls plus a Lunara, and the difficulty of trying to actually confirm kills off of that. And we sort of have the same thing going on here with the Poison Nova and Tormented Souls, and you take 2 very squishy heroes normally, put them in the middle of fight, and think about the damage they're going to take. And this is a different Tormented Souls. This is one of the changes that did come in from Altheo, is he had half of the armor from Tormented Souls removed, so he only has the 10 from that now. And it's a struggle for them. They do so much just trying to get into position and drop those heroic abilities that it's like, who's going to actually get the kills off of that?
Yeah, and you know, that's part of the reason I was talking about, wait a minute here, glowing through that. This force should be going over. Goku, though, he's got adaptation popped. He was gusted away. He's got the burrow. He's going to buy some time. There is the heal. Justing now coming through the portal. Drag onto the Stitches. Maybe not the target they wanted that time, but I mean, you know, at least Goku's showing he is immortal. But I did find that interesting because I did appreciate the fact they went with the double poison, but they didn't commit to again, that traditional double bruiser. At least they went for, like, the third character was in fact a squishy, high damage dealer like that Falstad for them. But it just feels like Roll20, it's almost just their coordination and initiation is more impactful than anything. It's not even really a comp thing. It's just Roll20 being like, we're better.
Yeah, they have so much ability to get through all of the damage. So no matter who takes the brunt of that damage from the initial engage of Tormented Souls and the Poison Nova, they have things like Force of Will with now reabsorption. They have a lot of healing, a lot of armor, and then the Divine Shield if things get very sticky. Now Sonya's getting the late game, so she has her own shielding with Nerves of Steel. There's reabsorption too, and there's even Leyline Seal if things get so bad that Goku or that Glowering has to press the pause button.
Yeah, something on the side of No Tomorrow. They've got to be able to way to force a fight as a group, and I feel like the way to be able to deal with that is just going to be an aggressive gust. That really feels like the only way I see No Tomorrow, you know, with the Tormented Souls going off, and Vials being dropped down, Poison Nova is doing its thing, and then they might be able to get the kills. But the portal has been way too impactful in buying that time.
And so is Dahaka. Goku's going to step right in again. Casanova's already in danger, and the Ancestral Healing has been popped. Putrid Bile as well. Equinox starting to move into position, but Casanova has just taken so much damage from Roll20. Justing's going in to get the kill, takes out Stitches.
Yeah, and now it's just going to be No Tomorrow trying to turn things around, talking trees with that Tormented Souls damage, getting so many people on the side of Roll20 low, but that's the thing. Who's going to get the kill, Gilly? Again, they kited out, they used those utility spells, and now Roll20, not only do they have another Punisher on the way, this is going to be a keep, possibly even game.
Roll20 have full understanding that they at least have to get a 3-0 in this match to be able to even hope for a tiebreaker series later on, depending on how the cards fall from the other series. But they are starting off so strong in this first game to prove that they have what it takes to land that 3-0 over No Tomorrow. Roll20 takes out the first keep of the game. They have a 4-level lead, 20-16. They march on toward the core.
Here it is. Punisher's got the leap. There it goes. Can they net a kill? Jason already falling so very low. Punisher, he's even trying to be the real MVP, locking it down. The shielding on the court is gone. We see a lot of damage. The Gust, Prisma ends up dying, but I don't think it's going to matter. That is already 25 and counting. Roll20. I want to say it was a shutout because that end death was the only one that No Tomorrow was actually able to get, but 13-1 in kills in absolutely dominant fashion.
Yeah. Putting on a clinic for how to play Infernal Shrines, Roll20 style, giving up the very first Punisher, even though it looked like it was just a free Punisher, but they could see beyond it. They could see where they were going into the late game, where they were able to be very strong and win every single fight, and they did just that. Roll20 seems to have the new patch figured out too, although that not really changing much of anything except maybe bringing Sonya in, whereas we saw some changes from No Tomorrow and will probably continue to do so after that game.
Yeah, I want to see, like, looking towards the second draft, did we see some of the more creative trends still coming out from Roll20, or if that was purely adaptive? Because No Tomorrow, I mean, they flat opened with the Zool, right? So suddenly you go like, well, what are the tools that Roll20 personally identifies as something to deal with that? And maybe that is the Dahaka frontline. I personally don't think that it is, but you know, I feel like I want more samples to really feel like what is the thought process here for Roll20 in their drafts.
Any other things immediately come to mind for you? It seems more, again, like No Tomorrow that we saw versus Even in Death, which is a bit frightening for them.
I mean, the one thing looking at the last game, like that I noted with the draft overall is like they don't need a solid frontliner because a lot of what they were intending to do is when you look at the heroics on the other side, you had Tormented Souls, Poison Nova, Ancestral Healing, Bile. Again, they're a list of I want to fight right now, and if I fail to have these cooldowns, I'm going to struggle. So when you see the Medivh pick, you're like, well, now what are you going to do? Which is why I was referring to like the offensive gust is you've got to do something to be like when we're using our heroics, we actually get the fight that we want. There were so many moments where it's like, okay, we see No Tomorrow trade heroics, then you see the portal play out, suddenly Sonya's back onto your backline, and Goku's doing Goku things. You can't really answer to that, you know? And so I feel like that could be part of the thought process where it's like, why do I need another warrior? All I'm going to do is disengage, and then I'm going to win the fight.
Well, it's a good moment for Roll20. We can take a look at some of the players who are currently playing in this match, but a good moment for Roll20 because they have had such a rough time in this phase, in this part. Specifically, though, last weekend was where things really took a turn for the worse for them. But you could see both of the melee-ish, I'll put ish on Glaurung's account, players, as well as Equinox, I guess. He's played some of the Vala and Vala Ariel, but definitely the two shot callers, and two shot callers that we look at as aggressive people and who the team sort of rallies behind.
I mean, even so much so that these players, when looking at the cinematic before, directly addressed one another, targeting that they feel like the shot calling and decision making really could separate the two. But when it comes out to the numbers, Glaurung does, you know, separate himself. And no surprise there, part of the reason he has been such a staple name in the North American scene for so very long.
Yeah, he dies less, he has a higher KDA because he's also netting a lot more takedowns than Equinox, and dealing more hero damage too, which is of course important. But the kill participation, pretty high for both of them, and that shows how important both of them are to the teams and being able to succeed.
Yeah, it's surprisingly how competitive these two are overall, you know? There's the kill participation specifically is so very close to one another, and that is, I feel like you're right, a little bit to do with, you know, the decision making being at the forefront of the team because they sit on the higher level out of all of HGC.
When we look at both of those shot callers too, the fact that both of them have so much pressure on them now with their teams, both of them have, well, Equinox has gone into a different team.
Yeah.
He played with Trees before, but otherwise was in a brand new team and immediately had all this pressure on them. They had the immediate success that then added a lot more, honestly. And now needing this victory after losing to Even in Death, it's a wonder of who is going to be able to maintain that good mental consistency for their team in this match that matters so much.
Yeah, it is very strange that, like, out of phase number 1 and phase number 2, they did share a bit of the same story, and so both of them kind of have that pressure back onto their shoulders because at first it was like, we have the brand new team and a historic, you know, top shot caller in North America, and then suddenly, like, the team's doing pretty well, and you're like, okay, well, this isn't a flop. And then the next week, you're like, okay, they might be legit. And the third one, you're like, okay, it is. Then both times they stumble, and you're like, wait a minute, did we get a little bit too excited here? Is it as genuine as possible? But I feel like Roll20 has obviously shown this is no fluke. You know, they are one of the best teams in North America, but it's still Roll20 or No Tomorrow, the ones who have to be like, you know, they deserve this spot.
Well, let's see what No Tomorrow has chosen to do after that loss, after the defeat in